Hello.
Hi.
It has been a while since we've uploaded a video, and part of what we're going to explain in this video is why it's been so long. So normally we don't write things down, well, I don't, Sarah does, but I decided with how long it's been and how many things have been going on since the last video, it'd be good to kind of write a little bullet point list down to follow here. So we'll be reading from that list. So, we had talked about doing this current leap of faith or walk of faith, and with that, we believe that God is calling us to sell our house, as we mentioned in the last video. So selling our house, buying an RV, and traveling around the country with our children, and we're not sure how long God has planned for us to do that, but we do believe we're supposed to do that, and then we also believe that He is directing us to eventually settle down in another place in the country, not here, and buy a piece of land and build our own house and do a homestead on that. And there's more details on that. Maybe we can do another video with that, but that's not what this video is about. So in the time since the last video, we've done a lot of showings for the house. It's been a huge amount of work.
Yes, each one entails at least an hour to two beforehand, and not to mention the time that we're gone.
And then getting back and
Yeah.
putting things back, and because there's certain things we gotta get out of the way, like we have a bunch of cats and we have to get them out of the house, we have to get their cat boxes out of the house, we have to sweep up all the messes and all that stuff, and then once we get back, we've got to get them all back into the house, go back around, get all the windows and lights and everything back to the way it's supposed to be. You know, we're supposed to open up windows when we leave, we're supposed to turn all the lights on, we're supposed to open all the doors up, and then we have to go back through and get it all back to how we normally have it when we're home. And that process for one half-hour showing can easily take about 4 hours of our day.
Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of kids, so then
Yeah.
it's a process. It's an orderly process we have to do.
Yeah, we have 5 kids right now. It's with number 6 on the way right now. Mm-hmm. And so it's a lot. It's a lot. And I mean, even if we weren't doing a house showing, just getting the kids out the door once everyone's actually ready, so not including getting them ready, but once everyone's ready, it can easily take about a half an hour just to get everyone packed in and all that stuff. I think we're down probably less time nowadays, but it used to take about a half an hour.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're down to about 15 or 20 minutes now. But so we've been doing a lot of showings, and it's been on the market since
End of October.
Yeah. So we listed it right before Halloween.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So and we had a lot of showings up until basically the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season. And then there was a brief lull, although even during that time we still had like 2 or 3 showings or something like that. So it's kind of surprising that there were actually people looking at houses during that time. And then pretty much as soon as Christmas was over, or like as soon as the New Year hit, then it just picked right back up, and there were tons of more showings. We've generally averaged about 3 or 4 showings a week, I'd say. I think there was 1 week where we didn't have any since then, but other than that, it's been just almost nonstop. So, and that's a good thing, because that means more people wanting to buy our house, and there's a lot of interest in it. And it also means that the price that we set our house at is what people find to be reasonable, based on the pictures they're looking at and seeing it on the side of the road and stuff like that. They're willing to come and spend time looking at our house at that price range, which is kind of a first little allusion to that we are following God, because one of the things that happened when we first were listing our house was they were wanting to show, or the original realtor we were talking to wanted to list our house for, I can't remember exactly right now off the top of my head, but it was something like $40,000 less than what we ended up listing it for, which is pretty significant, especially considering the things that we're planning on doing. I mean, that basically would have meant there's no money at all to even begin trying to do what we're trying to do, or what we believe God is calling us to do. And so we said no to that person, and we also checked out Zillow, and they made what looked like a good offer, but after all the nickel and diming and fees and things like that, it basically was going to be about the same as that first realtor. Mm-hmm. So we nixed both of those, and we ended up kind of laying a fleece. Some of you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And for those of you who don't know, it basically means that we kind of presented our situation to God, and we weren't sure where to go, what to do, and we kind of asked Him to show us by way of seemingly unrelated things happening. And the answer we got from Him was to go with this new realtor, who is now our realtor. And things went that way. That's the way he made things happen. And so we ended up listing it. Actually, the amount that we listed it for is about $1,000 less than what I believe that God was showing us. So that was a slight bit of, I guess you could say, disobedience on our part, but we were kind of talked into going down just 1,000 below, just because it made the price look better. Now, whether or not that actually is true or not, I mean, that's, I guess, up for debate, but we still, I believe personally that we should have just done what we believe that God was showing us for the price to set it at, and not tried to make this happen through our own ability or willing and dealing and trying to be savvy, business people, but just doing what God puts on our hearts. So I guess we'll take that hit, and we don't know how else that might have had a further effect, but so regardless, we've had several offers during this time, and most of them were lower than what we listed by a significant amount, but also significantly higher than what the first realtor suggested that we listed for, by like 25,000 or something like that, 25 to 30,000. So praise God, we did not go with the first realtor, and I believe he laid that on our hearts that this was not what we were supposed to do. I mean, he gave us the dollar amount first, and when they said what they said, I knew immediately that this is not what God wants. This is not what He's directing us to do. So we declined those. We countered some of them, and people weren't willing to come up any from where they were at. But again, they were still higher than quite a bit than the other realtor suggested. And then we had kind of a time where we were starting to question if this was even God's will. And that's not anything really new for us, doing these leaps of faith or walking by faith. There's often times of uncertainty where it requires us to be faithful to God because he's always faithful to us, but we need to be faithful to him. And usually, and I would even say always, that requires going through a time of uncertainty, a time where it doesn't make sense, it doesn't look possible even. And that's what we read about in the Bible all the time. There's countless stories of people walking by faith. God calls them to do something, and they go to do it, and it's pretty much, I don't know if it's always something that doesn't make sense, but they're, the good majority of them, if it's not always, are things that don't really make sense to us in our carnal minds, in our minds that are looking at things based on earthly wisdom and not on wisdom that comes from above. And so, for example, when God called the children of Israel out of Egypt, they were led to the Red Sea, and that doesn't make sense. I mean, if they were trying to do things practically, they might have gone a different way, or they might have said, oh, we need to prepare for the Red Sea, we better build some boats, or do something. And yet none of that was how they got across. God performed a miracle, and they crossed, and what looked impossible became possible, because God is the God of impossible. He can do anything, even things that are impossible for man. So God has done that with us many times. There's many times where we're walking by faith because of what we are believing that we're called to do, and that requires us to look at a situation that we know is impossible for us. We're both pretty good with numbers. We're both pretty good at things like accounting and spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. And so we will make the spreadsheets, we'll make the formulas, we'll run the numbers, and we'll run them, and we'll run them, and we'll run them. And no matter how many times we run them, it just says, we can't do this. We can't do whatever God's calling us to do. And many times, I mean, almost every time, it does involve some kind of money aspect where it looks impossible from a financial perspective. There's also other things that look impossible, but it's pretty much always involving money in some way or another. And the Bible says you cannot serve God and mammon, or money is what mammon means. And so I don't think it's any coincidence at all that every one of these leaps of faith, walks of faith, has required some kind of forsaking of looking at and trusting in money. It's always required looking at God, trusting in Him, and ignoring the money God, and not putting our trust or faith in having enough money, but putting our trust and faith in having enough God. And so this situation is no different. We've in many ways looked at these numbers and thought, this doesn't look possible. But having the track record with God that we have, we know that He's reliable. We know that He's trustworthy. So we continue to move forward with this. And there's also been a lot of distracting events during this time. Our daughter had a bad tooth problem. The dentist said that her overall oral hygiene is impeccable, but for some reason just this one tooth had a bad cavity in it. And so we had to get that done, and then the dentist was sick and had an injury, and so we had to reschedule, but for some reason we weren't able to get right in. They put us at the end of the list, I guess. And
it was like a month out.
Yeah.
Once he canceled.
Yeah. So that took a long time, and a lot of just kind of self-medicating with grace, because we weren't able to use the antibiotic. Normally they would prescribe one kind, but I'm allergic to that, and so we think Grace might be too. So they prescribed another kind, but it's still kind of in the same general family of medicine as the first kind, and she ended up having basically an allergic reaction. We called poison control. They said call 911. We called 911. They sent an ambulance out at like 11 or midnight or something like that.
Shined a nice big spotlight on our house
Yeah,
at like
so
11 o'clock at night, so I'm sure our neighbors could see that.
Yeah.
So.
And so, you know, we had a big whole ordeal with that, and the dentist said, you know, well, at first the paramedics, they said, you know, don't give her the medication anymore. And the dentist agreed. He said, don't give her it anymore. He went to his pharmacist. They basically said there is nothing else. And so they said, just don't give her anything until the surgery. So we just continued to just use natural home remedies like, you know, immune system boosting foods like garlic and just a wide variety of things. And then when she went in for the surgery, she did great. They didn't see any kind of infection. Everything went very well. So it sounds like, you know, whatever things that God led us to do in that time worked out great. And we also were kind of on the fence about if we should even give her the medication in the first place, but we didn't want to do something that would hurt her, but we did believe that, you know, maybe God was saying, you know, don't do this thing. And then when she had the reaction, it kind of was a confirmation there too. So, but God gave us an easy out, and so we ended up doing things His way, the way He led us to, and it worked out great. And then we had several follow-up visits with that. We've also had various issues with their cats. We've had to take them in and get them spayed and neutered, and there's just been various time-consuming complications surrounding that.
Including we had to reschedule the appointment because what were you going to say next?
Yeah. So Sarah had an issue with her arm, where we're not 100% certain how it started. We have some ideas, but then it was made worse when she hit her arm on the banister. Was it right? On like the corner of it, and her elbow. And at first, you just said it was like it just hurt, but it seemed like it was going to go away, right?
Yeah, but then and then we went to Grace's ballet class, and it was like progressively getting worse, and it kind of hurt to drive. So. And then it got to the point where you couldn't even move it. You couldn't even bend your arm at the elbow. No, it hurt so bad. And then after a few days, it got worse. I couldn't believe it could get worse. And it was just like every time my heart beat, it was just like throb. It hurt. And it was awful. It was so awful. I was praying constantly, and I just felt like I was never going to get out of it. And it lasted for about a week. You know, it was like 6 days, and then the 7th day, it was like, you know, I had my rest. I finally started getting better.
I thought it was even longer than that, but maybe I'm mistaken. But...
Well, I've had kind of like some kind of weird thing with near my elbow. There's been kind of a weird pain in there, but actually since that huge issue happened, now I don't have this weird pain anymore. So it's like it worked out whatever was wrong. So I don't know.
And we normally try not to use like any kind of pharmaceuticals or synthetic drugs or things like that, but it was so bad you were getting desperate, and we busted out the old ibuprofen and acetaminophen. Yeah. I think you took both, or right?
Yeah. I think it was just acetaminophen. Yeah. So yeah, I was desperate.
Yeah. And the thing that I think ended up helping a lot was this these electrode pad things that's this device called a Denaz, and it's got a bunch of different programs on it and stuff, and we've used it for all kinds of different things, and we kind of forgot we even had it, and all of a sudden we were like, oh yeah, this thing, let's try that, and it started helping right away. And
yeah, it like helps, like you put it where it's painful, and it kind of helps your body, like to tell your body there's something wrong there. And so it feels good while it's on there, but then it's also helping, like, to, tell your body, fix this.
And it sends the peptides there, and they start repairing the body. And so, like Sarah mentioned, we had to reschedule the cat stuff because of that, and then right towards the end of that, you were still suffering from that, and then I got sick, and then
I think I got sick too.
And then also Grace had another problem. She had a food allergy reactions this time. So it wasn't the antibiotics. It was just we made some. It was because you were doing with your health stuff, and then I was sick, and so we were trying to do something really easy for dinner one night. And so we opened up these big cans of chili that we had, and we're like, okay, we're going to do something really simple today. Because we normally make food from scratch and do all kinds of things. We normally eat really healthy, eat organic, and all this stuff. But we kind of cut corners this night because we weren't feeling good. And we forgot that this brand of chili, like most brands of chili, has wheat as a filler in it, and that's a big allergy problem for actually a few of us in the family, but I think Grace is probably the worst. And so she had a big reaction from that, and it was bad enough to where I was thinking, well, if she doesn't get better, we might need to call 911 again or go to the hospital or something. And so, because it actually, I think, was even worse than the antibiotic reaction. And, but, we prayed for her, and we gave her various different home remedies and things like that, and she ended up getting better pretty quick with all that stuff, thank God. And then, so I think that was kind of the end of that whole little run. And then we had, more showings. We actually had to cancel some showings during that time because we just couldn't do it. But then we had more showings, and then we actually had an offer that seemed like it was going to be the one, but I kind of got into my savvy business mode and thought, I'm gonna counter and haggle and try to get them to come up. And when I started doing that, they just kind of went silent. They didn't respond or anything. And our realtor kept reaching out to their realtor, and she's like, I don't know where they went, and all this stuff. And eventually, they basically said, oh, they're looking at another house, and they still liked our house, but they're checking out this other one first. And then, so we thought, okay, we're not going to really count on that one. And then we got a real offer, the one that we're going with right now, and it was almost the same. Some details were different, but basically it equated out to almost the same dollar amount once you factor everything. And so we decided, okay, let's consider this one. Let's really consider it. And while we were considering it, then all of a sudden this other house on our street, just a few houses away, that's basically bless you. That's basically the same model, same building plan and stuff as our house, just like minorly different. And all of a sudden it goes for sale and goes pending all in the same day. And we thought, that's pretty weird.
The for sale sign wasn't up the day before because I'd just been outside, so it really shocked me to see that.
Yeah.
And then I looked at Zillow. I was like, oh, what are they selling their house for? And it was already pending. And I thought, how does that happen? How is that quick? But
and it was for about $9,000 less than what we were listing ours for. And and happened to be the same exact amount that the other offer had been for. And so then we thought, well, we better hurry up and make a decision on this offer, because this could impact us. Mm-hmm. And then we're looking at the pictures and we're thinking, oh, their house looks maybe a little bit nicer than ours too, and might be a little more updated, and it's basically the same floor plan, although they don't have this. I think their backyard's not as good as ours, but we have some little extras back there. But still, it was enough to where it could make an impact, and so we went ahead and moved towards accepting it, and then Sarah, you found out from the neighbor. Oh yeah, I found out that the people are from a certain place, that another state, and the same as the people that were supposed to be making the offer, the other offer we thought on our house. So people that disappeared. Yeah, the people that disappeared,
and so we're pretty 99.9% sure that those people that were going to make an offer on our house that disappeared made an offer on the other house. So it's kind of it's just kind of surprising to find that out.
Because they had only made a verbal offer. They hadn't finalized it on paper. So they were able to kind of disappear the way they did. But they said they were looking at another house, and now we know what other house they're looking at, unless we're mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There is a small chance that we're wrong, but sure seems that way. So from out of state, so.
So even though the offer we got, they are offering the full amount that we asked, but then they also want us to cover some costs in that, and so we agreed to that, although we did negotiate down, and then later in the process back up again, but we'll explain that later. But we basically, we had kind of budgeted a certain amount to do a bunch of stuff, buy a new SUV, buy an
not
RV.
Brand new, but new.
Yeah, new for us. New
10
as a
years
replacement.
Old, Yeah,
new as in replacement of the one that we already have. So because it's too small for our family, and we're driving around in a borrowed minivan right now from her parents, and so in order to tow an RV, a travel trailer, we need to, which actually even that was kind of a change plan. We thought originally we would go to a Class A, but big long story there. So, which is another thing that's happened since the last video we made. But we've determined we think at this point, which who knows, God could change anything. I mean, he does a lot of interesting things that we don't anticipate, even though he shows us things that he is going to do. But right now, the tentative plan is to get the SUV and the travel trailer and have a certain amount to live on and all this stuff. So we budgeted this amount, but now we're having to say, okay, so we accepted the offer for the full amount, but they want us to cover certain costs. So okay, we had to budget that in, and then Sarah and I had a few more conversations about the upcoming pregnancy, or the pregnancy with the upcoming birth, and I had thought that because we've had so many kids, and usually it seems like, we've always had a midwife, and we've always done a natural.
And we've done them at home.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, we've always done the natural home births and stuff, and I've always thought, Sarah's doing all the labor, I'm doing like 98% of the other work, and the midwives, I mean, they're wonderful, but sometimes it just feels like maybe we're not getting everything we're paying for. Because, I mean, there's been times where they've literally sat there on the couch knitting while
during the first pregnancy, because, it was like 14 hours, from the beginning to the actual birth,
Yeah.
So.
But they didn't know how long it was going to be. They just showed up
true.
at the house, sat on the couch, and started knitting. And that was, that was kind of our first experience, and then it hasn't always been like that every time, but
it's much quicker now.
Yeah, but our side has always been pretty much the same in that Sarah's, of course, doing all the labor, and I'm doing pretty much all the other work. And
running around like a crazy man because he's
yeah.
got to get this done, get that done, help me with,
Yeah.
going through contractions and,
and basically the midwives are not. They do some stuff, but it just doesn't feel like. I mean, it's pretty costly, and insurance doesn't cover it unless we do things that we believe are against our
because they have special
belief
rules.
system and stuff. So we end up having to pay out of pocket, and it's pretty expensive.
Which is funny that they have those rules. Sorry, my quick little thing is that it's actually cheaper for the insurance than a hospital birth. So it's kind of funny that they make you do these rules when it's actually way cheaper to do the home birth. But that's a whole other thing. Anyway.
Yeah. So they end up costing quite a bit for us. So I thought we can do it ourselves this time. And we had some conversations, and I thought we were kind of on the same page, but we weren't. And I kind of was perceiving that this is what's going on, and so I kind of was asking Sarah some more, like, is this going to be a problem, or, are we going to be, in a situation at the last moment where we're budgeting all this money and it's looking kind of tight already, where all of a sudden we're going to have several $1,000s worth of unexpected expenses. And Sarah let me know that, yep, that's what she wants as a midwife.
Yeah,
and so
I wanted a midwife. And I guess when we were planning on moving, I just thought we'd be somewhere and God would just make it work out. There'd be somebody there is kind of what I hoped in the back of my mind. But I don't know. I guess it's kind of like for a lot of people who go to the hospital because they want it just in case, just in case there's an emergency. That's why they go to the hospital and have their child. But I feel fine about having it at home, but I guess I just feel that just in case it's nice to have somebody else there, like, to help out. And I don't know, it's kind of an expense, I guess. But yeah, so we had some, kind of worked through that.
Yeah, so we figured that out. I agreed to go ahead and hire a midwife, and so that ended up being a rather big additional expense in the middle of this thing that's already looking very difficult numbers-wise, which we explained before. It's kind of how it goes. Which was, again, following additional expenses for the house sale that we weren't anticipating either. And so at this point we're looking at, about an additional, what was it?
It's going to be
like 13,000 of expenses. And then all of a sudden,
at like 8:15 at night.
What?
On Friday night.
but it was like, what, 1 or 2 days later after the discussion about the midwife thing?
Yeah, it was about a couple days later.
Like, so 2 days later, all of a sudden, we get